Hello, and welcome to the Angry Sun Zone. This week we've got some thoughts on recent games we've played, and not a particularly specific episode about any game in particular this week, but we hope you enjoy our musings today. As usual, I'm Alex.
And I'm Sean.
And I'm Santo.
First up, I'm going to bring up a game that we actually might have some have a video coming up of this soon, but Sonic Mania. So,
yes, this game,
I love this game.
I'm not a fan of the game, and I'm not a fan of what it's done to us when we tried to record it. Though that's not the game's fault, that's Audacity's fault.
So me and Santo have both played the game recently, and I love it. I think it's great, but I love the Sega Genesis Sonic games, and it's basically a Sega Genesis Sonic game. So for anyone who liked those games, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Knuckles, it's great. And if you didn't like those games, well, you're gonna have a bad time.
As somebody who did not like those old games and playing this new one, I wasn't too into it. Though I recognize that it is a well-crafted for what it is. Like, this was clearly an homage to those old games.
Yeah.
So it, to me, it feels and plays like those old games.
It's actually interesting. The development, from what I've read, the development was actually a lot came down to two guys who started out making ROM hacks of the old Sega Genesis games and, making some fan games. And I love this. Like, instead of sending cease and desist orders or whatever other ridiculous thing Nintendo did recently, because they're always doing that, and they do not understand how to interact with their fan base in a sensible manner, Sega decided, there are these guys making well-known ROM hacks and fan games of our Sonic games. Let's hire them. And they hired them to do a port, I believe, of some of the older games to PC or something, or new consoles. I'm a little unclear, but they were porting some of the older Genesis games, I believe. And then that went well. And then they gave these guys free rein to basically make a Sonic game that they wanted to make. And so, it totally is an homage because it was made by super fans of the game who were making ROM hacks and fan games. Yeah, basically.
You've heard of white hat hackers? These are white hat game designers. Yeah, that's a really cool story. That's something that it's cool to see a company, bring in fans of the games that, because the modern Sonic games, it's been a rocky road even for fans of the series.
I mean, pretty much Sonic just didn't make the transition to 3D very well. And I'm going to say, I actually liked a couple of the earlier ones, like Sonic Adventure 2 in particular. I think was a high point for the 3D games, and even it had, honestly, a lot of problems. Like, some of the Sonic levels were good, but the Tails and Knuckles, Eggman, and other climbing, Rouge the Bat, those levels were, frankly, a bit weird and out of place. And...
Hold on, just a sec. Did you say there's levels where you play as Dr. Eggman?
Yeah. Yeah, you drive around. You drive around a robot suit thing with legs, and so you jump around.
Wow! And
you shoot enemies, and you play as Eggman.
That's surprising.
Yeah, Sonic Adventure 2 had this thing where there's like a light side and a dark side storyline, and then they converge.
Right.
Well, like once you beat both of them, you get like the real end. They happen in parallel, actually. And then at the end, you unlock, the ending. You don't have to pay for the ending, unlike certain other games we have dissed on the podcast.
Final fix!
But yeah, I mean, it was cool. It had a Chow Garden, which was amazing, and it's been kind of downhill since then, I'd say. There's been a couple other games that have been like, they are okay. Like Sonic Colors was okay, but really none of the 3D Sonic games have been amazing. They've all had problems.
Yeah. Basically, the Sonic franchise is a bit, like it's a really great analogy that you did, because it's been going on downhill, and then like they try to make it like go uphill, but it ends up just being a loop-de-loop, and they keep going downhill.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Sonic Mania is really it's a return to what I would consider the high point of the 2D games. And it also adds some small details that are pretty cool. Some of the character animations it very much looks like a Genesis game, but they've tightened up
the graphics.
They've tightened up the graphics a little bit. They've just made things smoother. It's very, like, you'll never run into graphics issues or stuttering or anything like that. And there's just subtle animation details that look really slick. Some of the animations have way more frames, like, per second than the animations in the older games did. Mm-hmm. Though a lot of the sprite work very much does look similar. Like, basically, Sonic Mania is like the Sonic game you remember instead of the Sonic game you'll get if you actually go and play the Genesis games.
Yeah.
Which, if you like them, it's great, and it just smooths it out somewhat, I would say. Mm-hmm. But going into some of the things that I think maybe aren't great about it, a lot of the complaints about all those older games is that you can't really. To an extent, they're an exercise in memorizing the level layout so you can actually play the game.
Yeah, my big problem with Sonic is that it's a game where you gotta go fast, and I never feel like I'm actually going that fast. Like, I never am able to get into like a really good flow while I'm controlling the action. There's parts in the Sonic games and Sonic Mania as well where you go into like a tube or some kind of like almost set piece kind of thing where it'll automatically make you like go really fast through the level and stuff, and that that looks cool, but I'm not controlling that, so the effect is lost a little bit. Yeah. The parts where you're able to stay in, like, really in control and go really fast actually require a lot of skill, and frankly not just skill but also memorizing the level layouts to actually quickly run through them. So that's.
I actually have a question there. So in those fast sections, how much do they penalize you if you screw up? Is it like, do you just slow down and have to pick up the pace again? Or in those sections, is it like there is death awaiting you, and if you screw up, you have to start over?
Well, I mean, the Sonic games have always been kind of generous, to where as long as you have one ring, you're not going to die. So generally, if you run and then there's some enemy that you run into or whatever, you pretty much stop, but your wings go flying, you're probably catching a couple. So it's difficult to really be in any danger.
Well, in later levels, there are pits, and that's classic Sonic complaint is, it was really good, going super fast, and then a pit came out of nowhere and I died. From what I've seen of Sonic Mania is actually not the worst game for just random pits that kill you instantly. Although Flying Battery Zone is full of them. But in general, I know Sonic Rush was another 2D Sonic game, which was pretty good, but that one was actually really bad for just throwing pits at you with no warning. Like, constantly. It was actually kind of infuriating sometimes. I'd say, other than Flying Battery Zone so far, none of the levels have been, like, really bad for pits out of nowhere, but
yeah,
it's definitely a design thing in Sonic games that can be annoying. So the game's very much a Genesis Sonic game, slightly modernized, only slightly though. And whether that's good or bad, I mean, I think it really depends how you kind of feel about that. What I will say is that there's no other platformer I find that really plays like a Sonic game. And I think that to an extent, the speed and the problems of like having to memorize the levels to go at speed through them, I don't know how fixable that really is, and keeping the feel that the game has, right? Because at its best, it's like you feel like just this unrestrained, barely controlled speed. And I'd say that not a lot of other platformers really get that. And I don't think a 3D platformer has ever really nailed it, including the Sonic games. Like, it's just a hard thing to translate to 3D, I think.
Yeah. Because, like,
I mean, frankly,
if you want to give something the illusion of being, like, you know, like you said, barely contained, barely controlled, and you give it an entire other axis of movement that you have to worry about, like, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. I think, actually, if anything, the closest 3D, so to speak, games with that feeling are actually, like, you know, certain racing games. I mean, the whole, like, class of Wipeout, you know, F-Zero, kind of like zero gravity racers, like, kind of has that feel sometimes. But that's also not a...
It's a comparison. It's not, maybe not the best comparison.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a comparison, I'll give you that.
And in the F-Zero game, you start with 0 rings and are unable to get any the entire time.
No, in F-Zero GX, you can make a ring go around your ship and hit other ships, and that's all I did in that game, was try and fuck up the other ships instead of racing, because I was shit at it. I was really bad at racing, so I was just like, I'm just going to try and knock as many people out at the beginning of this race as I can.
That's what happens to me when I play Rocket League.
It's like, you're the goon of Rocket League.
Yep.
The enforcer.
The enforcer.
Yeah, the other thing another thing I'll say is that there's a ton of levels in Sonic Mania. Like,
okay,
there are more than there are in a lot of the older games. It's actually got quite a lot to play through. So that's kind of cool. And then some of the special levels are kind of interesting. They brought back a special level that was okay, with like collecting these blue spheres that turn into red ones. And then they have another special level, and that's, I think, for like these weird coins that I don't actually know what they do. I've got some of these coins, and they show up in my menu as progress, but I don't know what they do. And then there's the Chaos Emeralds, which you get through a different special stage mini game where you're kind of like running around a level, and it almost feels like one of those old like Mode 7 Mario Kart kind of stages. Yeah. Except you're Sonic instead of a cart. And then you collect rings, which are your time, and then you collect these blue balls, which increase your speed, and you're trying to catch a UFO. It's kind of cool. It's not the worst Sonic special stage that's ever been made. So
it seemed fine when I played it. And the levels, like, to give you an idea, like, when we say this is an homage to the old Sonic games, we freaking mean it, because the first place you're in is Green Hill Zone. Yeah,
some of the levels are actually very much using the same art assets as the old games. Yeah. And then to be fair, they've added some really nice remixes to those stages. So they've got Green Hill Zone, they've got Chemical Plant Zone. I love Chemical Plant Zone. It's one of my favorite stages, like, out of all of the older Genesis games. And then they did an absolutely killer version in Sonic Mania, and it's not like they've used the Chemical Zone kind of music, remixed it, they've added the graphics from the older games, and kind of like, you know, brought them a little bit more up to date. The game looks more like Sonic CD than the Genesis games, actually, and so just slight updates to the graphics. And then the Chemical Plant Zone has some really interesting new mechanics that were not in the older Genesis games. And that's actually something I've noticed in a lot of the levels, is that the developers have gone and added new types of mechanics to these levels that were not present in the older games, that make it feel a little bit more interesting to someone who who has played all of those older games. Like Chemical Plant Zone has these interesting colored fluids that different colors do different things. So there's like a super bounce thing that's green, and there's like a moderate bounce that's blue, and there's like toxic. There's like a toxic one that's like a darker blue. So that's and it kind of fits like, you know, the idea of Chemical Plant Zone, right? Now there's actual chemicals in Chemical Plant Zone. What a concept. I love it.
Yeah. The boss fight in Chemical Plant Zone as well. I'm not going to spoil it, but that's one of the best boss fights. It's so funny. It's so funny.
It's really funny, yeah. Boss fights have never really been a highlight of the Sonic games, and honestly, they're still but they have a few boss fights that are interesting and that are different. So yeah, I like that too.
Mm-hmm. So when we played it, one of the stages that I got to was Studiopolis or
Studiopolis, I think, yeah.
And like, was that like a level from the older games, or was that completely new?
I think that one's totally new.
Yeah, because it felt new. Just like the sheer amount of like stuff in the background and all the like the style of it, a lot of the mechanics, like, and the music was really good too. Like that level was actually pretty good. I was having a bit better of a time on that stage. But then after that was Flying Battery Zone, and I fell into a couple pits and got a game over.
Wait, did you say Flying Battery Zone?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm starting to think some of the names of the Sonic stages are like, they seem ordinary. Flying Battery is not one of those.
It's the airship level.
Okay, I'm thinking of the other kind of battery.
Like a weapon, like a battery of weapons.
Gotcha.
It's not just the gigantic 9-volt in the air. How far did you get in it? So, do you think?
I think I got maybe to the 7th zone or something like that.
Okay.
Like I got past Flying Battery Zone, and the next zone after that was kind of a cool zone with switch mechanics, which aren't not as common in Sonic games as Mario games. Yeah, and then it's got some multiplayer options, apparently, both a couple of different modes in multiplayer that we haven't tried yet. And then it's got like time attack and stuff like that, like classic kind of modes. Oh, it's also got it's a little unclear because the game doesn't really explain these much, but there's also different abilities. So you can play as Sonic and Tails, or Knuckles. And obviously Knuckles has his abilities of climbing up walls, which is really cool. Tails has his ability to fly. And then Sonic has some abilities too. And you can actually like switch different abilities out. So like the default Sonic Mania ability is this ability that when you're in the air and you jump, you can like hold a certain button combination down. I think it's like holding the jump button and down. And then when you hit the ground, you get a burst of speed. And then there's a couple other different abilities that you can switch out to, like the Sonic CD ability to just like charge up a really fast... You charge up a fast running move.
Spin dash, right?
Yeah, no, but it's not the spin dash. It puts you like running instead of in the ball form. It's called like peel out or something. Super peel out. I don't know. Anyway, so they've got a couple different abilities that you can switch out that for the characters, which is it kind of is interesting. Keeps it a bit. It gives you a little bit more varied of a move set. Not that there's much of a move set in Sonic, but yeah. Overall, I mean, I really like the game.
Yeah, I think our conclusion on it is probably like, I don't think this is going to change your mind on Sonic.
No. Yeah, it's not going to change your mind on the old Sonic games. If you've played the Genesis Sonic games and you love them, play Sonic Mania. It's amazing. If you played the old Genesis games and you didn't like them, it's a Genesis game. It's basically it's like it's a super fan game of like what the absolute peak of the Genesis games like were, and for all of their flaws that they had, all of the flaws those games had are basically still here. And so, that's pretty much it. And if you haven't played any Sonic games, you could try it out. It's a high-speed platformer that requires a fairly large amount of playtime on specific levels to like really get through the game. So you'll be playing the same level over and over to kind of get better at it and find the secret hidden lives and stuff like that. It's got a really old school system of lives and continues, which can be a detriment, I think, at times, especially if you're not particularly good at the game yet, because you're going to be dying and having to get these continues and stuff. And it's, I think a lot of people are frustrated by that more old school approach to dying in the game, but I'm fine with it. But that's...
Yeah, I think it works. It probably works fine for Sonic, just because, like you said, like, part of Sonic is mastery over these levels. So if you have to continue, like, I don't know, I got the game over and then stopped.
Yeah.
So, like, where does it put you? Does it put you at the beginning of that level?
Yeah, it puts you at the beginning of the zone you were in.
Okay.
So once you clear a zone, like, you're gonna have that stay, but you won't get to keep your checkpoints through the levels or even the second half, because each zone is divided into 2 acts.
Yeah.
So if you get a game over, you're back to the very beginning of the level, this first half of the zone. Again, for Sonic, like Sand was saying, mastery over the levels is really where part of the fun comes from these games. And so that sort of old school approach, it forces you to replay it a lot more than you might otherwise. And so you get better at it, which makes it more fun to like rip through the level at high speed. Also, the levels are huge. They're definitely bigger than the Genesis games would have been.
Oh yeah, they feel gigantic.
There are so many checkpoints, and I feel like if you didn't have as many checkpoints, you'd just be kind of lost sometimes. Because sometimes you feel a bit lost, and then you're like, oh, I found a checkpoint. I must be going in the right direction.
Yeah, so I guess that's it for Sonic Mania. Hopefully, you're going through all of these zones. Maybe there'll be an Angry Sun zone.
Maybe there will be an Angry Sun zone. We'll have to find out.
And for me, I've been playing some Grifflands. Grifflands is it's a deck building game, turn-based game, and it's a roguelike, one of my favorite genres. And so if you've played other games like it, such for example, the other game that I've played like it is Slay the Spire. And this game definitely gets you to enter the same kind of repetitive loop, similar to what you guys were talking about with Sonic Mania. However, there's different characters that you can pick as your main character, and you enter into quickly diverging kind of pathways or builds of bringing your character up to bear against the challenges that you're going to face. And so that's a summary of Grifflands. But what I find is it's actually really fun. Now, the original reason why I was looking at Grifflands is I was looking for an alternative to playing Magic the Gathering Arena. And you know what? Grifflands is definitely an entertaining way to kind of scratch that itch. It rewards you for both exploring outside of the builds that you feel familiar with when you're starting a new loop, but also diving in deeper and upgrading your deck of cards, because not only can you get new cards, but you can also upgrade them, and it's a diverging choice as to how you upgrade your cards. And so what you can find is that even if you ended up with the same bunches of cards in 2 different games, your end result deck might look entirely different based on what you're feeling in those particular runs. What I also found was that a lot of the voice acting is not English; it's alien sounds. But just the immersion itself. So this game is made by Clay Entertainment. They've made other great games like Invisible Inc. They've done a really good job of creating a world with very strange and alien terminology, well, of course, because this is a sci-fi genre, and just quite frankly, a universe around you that is, in some ways, it almost feels like a space western to me a lot at times, and that's not...
I love space western.
Yeah. Everything from the art style to just the dialogue and a lot of the thematic elements in it. But it... So it feels both familiar and alien at the same time. But...
all right. Were they trying to make a Mandalorian game but couldn't get the rights?
You know what? I feel like if you put official Star Wars characters in there, it really would feel like a Mandalorian game. That's funny you mentioned that, but perhaps that's just a consequence of the space western genre.
Are they angry like everybody else that Firefly got canceled? Yeah. The immersion part's pretty cool that you mentioned, because like I've only seen like a little bit of this game when you played it, but it looked like it did something where when you were talking with other characters, there would be highlighted parts of the text.
Yeah.
And so like you could hover over that to get like a little explanation of like, you know, in universe terms and stuff.
They made thorough use of tooltips.
Yeah, like, and that's really cool. I think Pyre did the same thing, right?
Yeah. Pyre had a similar in-text kind of tooltip thing.
Yeah, and I think that's a really awesome like world building design decision, because it lets you have exposition which without having literal character exposition.
Yeah.
And what was also cool about that is as you start to find out more about the world around you and you get used to this language, you can actually pick up on some character dialogue or decision options that aren't immediately apparent to you at first. For example, you know, one of the characters might be griping about how their family is always hungry. And if you throw them a bowl of grub from the main kind of shopkeeper that you deal with back in the original shop, if you go all the way back to your home base and then you come out and visit them with this, then they give you a secret item. So there's a lot of cool little synergies like that I found where they reward you for being immersed and don't just, you know, throw you off the deep end. The other cool thing is that there's actually two distinct types of battles going on. So basically you've got your main overworld where you're traveling to choose between different quests because there's limited time to complete those quests. But also the approach that you take any individual quest is either with violence or with verbiage. And so you get to actually, you have a unique deck for each character for each of those two branches. So your character might be kind of like, you know, your former turncoat from the bad guys, you know, and so he's got a lot of relationships with the bad guys that you met through your playthrough of the first character, and so his they call it I think the negotiation deck, if I'm correct. Yeah, that's the cool thing is even when you're facing against an enemy, if they look like they're overwhelmingly powerful in the violence department, you can see if you're willing to take the negotiation option. And it definitely can, if you screw up in a negotiation bad enough, you can actually trigger a fight afterwards. So it's pretty entertaining. And Griftlands for me has definitely been one of those games that I will sometimes think about and immediately go back and pick it up. Yeah.
Cool. So, what are like the roguelike aspects of it? You mentioned the different characters.
So, when you're starting over, the only thing that anchors you is the beginning circumstances of your character and the cards that you start with, the items that you'll come across, the characters that you come across are all completely randomized each run, save for a few anchor points. There's some major quests or characters that you have to be able to defeat or beat in order to progress further. And so when you start again, actually at first, you really do start pretty much from ground zero up until you progress far enough that you discover some resources that can boost your character in certain ways that last between these rounds of playing. Mm-hmm. And also, the only way to get more characters is actually to progress further with the characters that you already have.
Right, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds like an interesting sort of RPG game.
A card PG?
Card PG. I was kind of thinking about that concept too, and I was like, hold on. Even your basic deck of cards, like if you're playing, a game with a regular deck of cards, each time you shuffle, if you shuffle properly, it is completely random. Can you get any more roguelike than a deck of cards?
Yes. You can play rogue.
You could burn the cards. Item destruction. Yeah.
Sounds
you know
like...
what I find one of the things I find kind of interesting more broadly is developers taking design choices for video games from actual physical card games or RPGs. And the funny thing is that from what I've seen, a lot of the developers making these decisions to use a card system or use simulated dice rolls, they're doing it because for some reason, players don't like actual randomness. This is a thing that with XCOM, for example, has been abundantly clear that the developers go so far as to change the actual percentages that are displayed because the real percentages are players perceive it unfairly, right? Like if you have a 95% chance in XCOM, it's more like they've bumped it up. Like you actually have, I don't know the exact numbers because they won't say what they did, but they display a number that is actually lower than what it is. So if you have an 80% chance to hit, it's more like you have a 90% chance in the game engine. Because, people don't like 1 in 10 of their shots missing at 90%. Because for some reason we see 90% and we think, oh, that's pretty much guaranteed. But no, it's 1 in 10. But if you roll a 10-sided die, for some reason we're okay with that. like if you roll a 10-sided die and you need 2 or better, we're totally okay with that for some reason. But we're not okay with the 90% chance. And it's a funny psychological thing. And it's just interesting because I've been seeing a lot more games taking this approach of simulating physical randomness somewhat, as opposed to using just straight percentages. Because when we give straight percentages, we don't the player gets frustrated with those. But if you introduce randomness through you physically show dice being rolled, or you give the player cards that introduces the randomness, players are much more understanding of when the randomness does not go their way with these simulated physical representations. So it's a kind of an interesting game design choice, I guess, for how to present randomness and incorporate it into your games that I've been seeing a lot more of lately. And so Griftlands is just another one.
Yeah.
Because at first I thought I was kind of why would you bother simulating dice rolls or simulating cards like this just for a battle system? It just seems silly, right? This isn't a board game. You don't need dice to do statistics. But because when you do it that way, the player understands the statistics more intuitively. And so,
interesting thought there. Yeah, there's certainly been such an explosion in card-based anything recently. When I think of old card PGs, the only ones I can think of are the Bat and Kaitos games and Mega Man Battle Network.
Did Mega Man Battle Network have cards?
Yeah, it totally did.
I don't remember it having cards.
Well, you built your program or whatever, and it had different things you could do, and then It's been a while since I played Mega Man Battle Network, but yeah, that was a deck building game, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, well, there were a few of them, and I think they might have changed the way that the battle system worked as the series went on.
There's been a lot of Battle Network games.
I mean, I kind of liked it. I kind of liked those games. They had a bit of a cool.
That series has been around long enough that There's a game called One Step from Eden that is a spiritual successor to those,
Awesome.
which is pretty funny. But yeah, it seems like there's so many freaking like deck building type games now. I'm really interested to know like what triggered that. What triggered developers to like just start making those now.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely listened to some developer commentary it's been very explicit that they've moved to things like simulated dice or simulated cards because of seeing how players were upset at percentage-based randomness. So, and then to an extent, it's new, and so developers want to experiment with newer things, and then so like it's a bit of a fad, but it's a fad that I think started for a good reason.
Everybody that grew up around Pokemon is now old enough to make games, so it's like, hey, Pokemon cards were fun.
Yeah.
I remember that. Was it
Like a
called the
deck building game.
Pokemon trading card game for Game Boy Color?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a fun one. Even back then, they were doing it.
Cool. So I guess we'll go on to me now. I've been playing 2 games. One of them I'll only mention a bit briefly. I started playing a game called Arknights, which is a mobile gacha tower defense game.
Okay.
And it actually seems like pretty good for what it is for now. Like, it doesn't feel pay to win, which is like the highest compliment you could ever have for a gacha game.
But is it actually pay to win?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, it's definitely you can spend money. That's for damn sure.
'Cause that would be the brilliant like success from the business perspective of a gacha game is one that does not feel like it's pay to win, but is totally pay to win.
Yeah, but it's a kind of fun tower defense game where you build your team of like animal people and put them down on certain tiles of this board. You see where the enemies are coming, where you gotta defend, and there's a bunch of different abilities. The game revolves around you have deployment points that you get over time, and certain characters can manipulate how fast you gain these deployment points, and certain types of characters will be like early game or late game, and each character can block a certain amount of enemies coming through. So you've got your defenders that can block a lot, or you've got you're kind of like quick attackers that cost very few deployment points, so you can like deploy them when you really need like some extra backup on spot, but they might have high DPS, but they can't really hold a position. And you can like, when characters die, they go on cooldown for a while, or you can make them retreat and then get some of your deployment points back. So far, a lot of the missions have been like pretty interesting, just trying to manage where you're placing everything and retreating stuff. Like, I have this one character that is like my favorite to use because their special ability is that their redeployment time is like a third of everybody else's. It normally takes a while, so like they're just like alright, I need like help here badly, so I throw them down and pick them back up, throw them down somewhere else. So there's some interesting mechanics going on in it. If you can tolerate a gacha game, then I'd say give this one a look. And the story's kind of hilarious because in all these gacha games, like the player character is like some faceless like noun, basically. Like in Fire Emblem Heroes, you're the summoner and whatnot. Here, you're the doctor.
The doctor.
The doctor is in.
Because the entire plot of the game is that there's people being infected by this incurable disease caused by this weird mineral that is being used to make like crazy technology, and you're part of an organization that's trying to cure it. And the organization's name is Rhodes Island, which is really fucking stupid.
That is so dumb.
It's like Rhode Island, but scholarly? I don't know. So yeah, you're just like going around, and then there's like a gigantic group of fanatical infected people that want to, basically like bring down society, and it's like it's pretty grimdark.
Wow.
So far, despite, you walking around with, like, a bunch of waifus with, like, cat ears. So it's, like, a bit of a tonal dissonance there, but...
Waifu cat-eared Grimdark. Now
Yeah.
that sounds like a...
Listen, there's a
Sounds like some 40k fan art to me.
Yeah. Market niches are everywhere. You just gotta find them. Somewhere, this is somebody's favorite game because of that aesthetic, for sure.
Yep, wouldn't be surprised.
So yeah, that's been occupying some of my time, but the other game I've been playing is another on the Santo list of weirdly named games that I picked up, and that's AI the Somnium Files.
My goodness.
Not Insomnium, Somnia.
So, Somnia is Latin for dream.
Yeah.
So, insomnia is, can't dream. Because you can't sleep.
Yep.
And that dream parts of it actually play a really big role in this game. So, I originally picked this up because it was a game by director Kotaro Uchikoshi. And he's done the Zero Escape series, so 999 VLR and Zero Time Dilemma. And if you listen to the Favorite Games podcast, you'll know that 999 VLR are two of my favorite games. So anything this director puts out, that's going to be a pretty good indication of quality in my opinion. And I put about 4.5 hours into this game, and it's so fucking good, man. Oh my god, it's so good. So it's like a visual novel, kind of light adventure game, like his other works. So if you play something like a Phoenix Wright, some of this may sound familiar to you. Your character is named Date, and he is a member of ABIS, ABIS, which is the Advanced Brain Investigation Squad for the Metropolitan Police Department. So you investigate crimes, and basically what your role in it is that you are able to use this technology to sync with other people and dive into their subconscious and get information out of them that you won't be able to otherwise. The start of the game is you are at you go to
you're a mind hacker.
Yes, pretty much.
But for good.
So far, it seems like it. Yes. So
I can see the twist already.
The game opens with you at this rundown amusement park where there's a person that's been murdered sitting on top of one of the horses in the merry-go-round, and they have one of their eyes removed. And there's another person there, a little kid who happens to be your roommate, and the person that's murdered is the kid's mother. So this kid is completely traumatized and can't speak. So you have to go into their mind and kind of figure out, okay, what happened, and not necessarily even what happened, but just what is this person's state of mind, and how can I fix that in their subconscious to make them able to talk, so that we can figure out, okay, what happened, what's going on. And that occurs with these little puzzle sequences where you have a few different points of interest in the world, and you need to investigate them all within a 6-minute time limit. And time only moves when you move. So it's got super hot mechanics.
Okay.
Oh, wow, okay.
And each action that you do when you're investigating these points of interest will take a certain amount of time. Which is... I don't like that much, because there's so much personality behind all of the investigation in this game. It's very much like Phoenix Wright in that way, where in the normal investigation parts that you're in, you can look around and almost everything in the world has a little bit of flavor text, and the writing in that is super good.
So you don't actually have enough time to fully examine all of the little bits with interesting writing?
So in the first one that I did have enough time. You do get like little power-ups that make it so that the actions that you take only, like, are reduced by a certain amount. So like, for example, if you want to, say, make your character get on one of the horses on the merry-go-round and ride it, it's like, okay, that action is going to take you 30 seconds. So you kind of have to budget things. So that part's a little odd. I haven't done too many of those. I've done one with a time limit and one that didn't have a time limit. But there's not that many points of interest, so I could see that not getting in the way that much. But so the game has an incredible sense of style to it, where a lot of the transitions in between, like, the real world and the dream worlds look like really crazy awesome, and the dream worlds themselves are like these surrealist portrayals of regular ass things, like a lot of weird stuff's happening in them. And this is something that this director in particular is like really good at. They're really great at implementing like symbolism into pretty much everything that they do. And the UI direction in this game is also really, really good. Like, everything's super stylized and looks really cool. But let's get into why I think this game is so great. Okay, so your character has a companion with them called Iba. And Iba is this character's left eyeball.
Okay, I was thinking here it would stand for some sort of AI, but no.
You are correct, because the eyeball in his eye is a little AI machine.
Oh boy.
That connects with his brain. And this companion is like, they're so funny. Their personalities all over the map. And they're constantly making like puns and shit. Same with the main character. Constantly just like roasting each other. So there's a lot of like interplay between the two characters that is like really, really funny. But when you go into these dream sequences, Iba like materializes into a person to explore these areas. Though at one point early on in the game, Iba does literally pop out of your eyeball and start like makes like a weird like jelly creature form and starts walking around.
What?
It's really weird.
That's pretty weird.
That's very weird.
Yeah, and like I said, there's tons of puns and wordplay. Your main character is extremely horny at times.
Okay.
So, like, there's one part in the game where you're in a Yakuza office, and shit's about to go down. A person pulls out a gun on you, and your AI companion says, "Look, there's a porno mag on the ground." And the main character's like, "What?" And like dodges a bullet because of it.
Wow.
And then the AI's like, after the entire like scene goes down, there's a gunfight, and then Dante to the Iba is just like, "So where was that porno mag?" and it's like,
my god!
I noticed that your reaction times are 3.6 times faster when you are excited, so I made that up. So there's a lot of just like,
main character's very horny. Is this a dating sim?
no, it better not be.
Oh my gosh!
Because your roommate, the girl that I mentioned earlier, is 12 years old, so it better not be. But she's like the daughter of your best friend, and your best friend went through like a messy divorce, so you were looking after her for a bit. And then, her mother gets murdered, and then her father also gets murdered. So this ends up being like a serial killer murder mystery, to where it's the mystery of the new Cyclops killer, because he removes everybody's left eye. And
wait, so did the main character lose his eye to like the old Cyclops killer?
So probably, well, maybe.
Is that even explained?
So there's okay, your main character suffers from a condition that in most hands I would call a lazy plot device. But I like this writer so much that I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. Your character has amnesia.
Oh god.
Where they can't remember anything past 6 years ago. So, and that's when the incident happened that made them lose their eye. And also 6 years ago, there was a case of the old Cyclops killer who killed a bunch of 4 people and removed their right eyes. So now we got the new Cyclops killer that removes everybody's left eye. And so there's hints of okay, something like really messed up happened during that time. And the game actually prompts that very early on, because the first thing you see is somebody with their left eye removed, and your character has AI in their left eyeball. So instantly you're going to be thinking okay, what's going on here? There's probably going to be some dumb twist where the main character did everything. But they lay out this, past stuff very early on, just to, kind of place the foundation for look, we're gonna lay down a bunch of questions, but we're gonna get there. We're gonna answer them at some point. So
you're not gonna have to buy DLC for the answers.
No.
Although apparently there is a sequel in the works.
Yes, there is.
Uh-huh.
Should be releasing next year. So looking forward to that too. And so there's this option in the menu that hasn't been explained and tutorialized to me yet, but there is a flowchart. And it seems that in these dream sequences, there's multiple solutions to them, which will take you down branching paths, which might be interesting. I'm not sure. This director has done a bunch of stuff with branching paths in the past, so that's not actually that surprising. But right now I'm just continuing on the path that I'm on. I haven't gone back to try to solve them differently to see if I can go down a different path yet. So I'll be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah.
It's that's, as an interesting story, story framework, sure. But will it have gameplay implications? Because a lot of, again, this director's other works was taking information that you got in certain branches of the game that you've been playing and bringing them into other branches to, solve problems. So don't know if that'll happen here, but we'll see. But yeah, I've been enjoying it a ton so far. I was playing it until 2:30 last night, and then we agreed to record this early today, and I was seriously considering playing an all-nighter because I really wanted to just keep playing it.
Wow.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
So,
that sounds like a stellar recommendation right there.
So yeah, so if you're, into these weird off-the-wall murder mysteries and things like Phoenix Wright, things like Danganronpa, yeah, give this game a look. I think it's definitely worth your time. And yeah, a bunch of fun themes in it. The number 6 shows up very prominently in it.
Oh my.
Yeah, so that's AI, the Somnium Files.
Cool. Sounds like
Dope.
an interesting game. Yeah, so that's what we've been playing lately. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If there's any games that you think we might enjoy, you can reach out to us at our Outlook, angrysunzone@outlook.com, or our Twitter, at angrysunzone. If you want to hear more of us, you can also check out our YouTube channel. You guessed it, Angry Sunzone.
We just put up a Magic the Gathering video.
Yeah, Magic the Gathering. Yeah, new set release actually. So.
Mm-hmm. That was the reason for releasing that video. Yes.
So yeah, that's all we got for you this week, and be sure to check us out, subscribe.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Yeah. On this podcast, it's finger looking good.
Colin's been busy.
I mean, that the dog is licking your fingers. Yep.
Yep.
Don't use my controller.